So make sure you click PM staff. You should see your dashboard kind of looking like this. If you're a campus teacher, you'll only see your students. Okay, so right now, your dashboard might look a bit differently than mine because I see everyone across all of our districts. Okay, so if you are in charge, if you're an instructional coach, most likely you'll see multiple campuses. You could filter your schools here. So if you click on a school, you can see the data here changes. And you can search for your specific students either by their number or their name and click on Go to Student Detail, and you'll see their detail card, which I will go over in a bit. The other important thing is that you see how the names are hashed out. This is a good feature if you're speaking to your entire staff or parents. You can go to your initial and click on demo mode, and then it will hash out the names and numbers. Okay, so you can filter by school, filter by student, and you'll see the attendance rates here too. You can hover over each of the grades, they're color coded, or you can hover over the grades at the bottom and you can see the last 5 days, the rate and the count for attendance. Whenever you navigate through Performance Matters and you want to just refresh, you can just click Performance Matters up top and it'll take you back to my dashboard. So everywhere in Performance Matters, if you hover over it, it'll tell you like a little bit of detail what that click would do. And then you'll also see the percent enrollment of students. So what you see now on my screen is the summary of all the districts, right? So if you filter by school, you'll see a comparison of that school to the district. So the green is from the schools and the darker blue is the comparison to the district. Right? Okay, so you can see your male-female distribution, the attributes, so different ethnicities. So you can see the different distribution for your different campuses. Okay, so you can see this campus has 98% Hispanic versus the 55 for the district. And other indicators for your students, such as limited English proficiency or students with disability, or whether this is on here, but I don't think we have this indicator for our students. And then discipline rates. So discipline rates card looks a lot like the attendance rates card. Could you guys please make sure you've muted? So the discipline rate here is distributed between 5 months. And you can hover over each of these bars or the individual grades, and that'll highlight the grades too. So what's of interest here for you? Probably your test analysis. So your dashboard is a quick summary of your school and the tests. Okay, so right here in the middle here is your test analysis. What the default is the last test that your students have taken. So what you see here is for course 2, CBA 7, and it depends on what's on the test, right? So this is like a student item analysis. This is where your teachers will probably spend most of their time looking at their data. You can filter by attribute. So on this test, you have this many standards and these kinds of question types. So multiple choice, extended text, where they type in their free response, graphic gap match, which is a drag and drop of pictures, and inline is like a fill in the blanks. The number of items is how many items on this test for that attribute. Okay, so whether it's a question interaction or a standard. So you're probably most interested in the standards, right? The standard distribution. And then percent of your students meeting certain performance spans for that attribute, for that standard. So the red would be does not meet. Yellow is approaching, green is meeting, and blue is excelling. Okay, so you could filter by clicking any of these arrows. Okay, you can also filter by performance bands by clicking on these little boxes. You'll see these little boxes a lot throughout PM. So for test analysis, student item analysis, and also all the reports. If you click them all, that means you're looking at all of your students who met those bands. So in this case, all 4 of them. So that's why you'll see 100 here. So if you're interested in the percent of students that did not meet expectations on these standards, then you would just highlight the red. You could sort by clicking the arrow. So you can see this is the standard that your students have the hardest time with. Okay, 31.65% of your students did not meet this standard. And also keeping in mind that there's only one question that has this standard attribute. If you want to look at both red and yellow, so you're approaching and does not meet, then you highlight both of them. Okay, and then you can sort. Or just highlight the blue, who are your students that are excelling on those standards. Okay, and the average is the average students that excel for the district on that standard or question interaction. And the other thing you can do is specifically look at a single standard by clicking on that standard or any attribute, and you can see how the bar graph here changed. Okay, so if you click on it, then that's exactly what you'll see is that standard that you just clicked on. You can aggregate the data by clicking multiple standards or multiple attributes. If you unclick, then you'll view the whole aggregate of all the standards on this test. Okay, what's great about looking at the different attributes or different standards or question interaction is you can see how your students perform based on multiple choice versus others. Okay, so for this test, they definitely like the graphic gap match better than the other question interaction. Or you can say, click on the red and sort. They have the most difficult time with inline choices, which are the fill in the blanks for this test in particular. You can do the same standards. Okay, this is what your teachers can do in their student item analysis, which is the report that most of your teachers will likely use. The last thing on the MyDashboard is the student achievement on state tests that gets imported into PM. So you can filter by years here in the STAR test. And this just kind of gives you a brief summary of your specific campus. So in this case, I did click a specific campus. Right, so the next tab on your dashboard is your news and assignment. This is a great place to direct your teachers for training tutorials. If they click this, they'll see tutorials about 3 to 5 minutes long. So that's the first place they should go. And then recorded webinar series, which is more interactive with those participants. And those are about 30 minutes to an hour long. The webinar series I like because it goes into strategies and best practices for different reports in PM. If a teacher share a report with you, say in their student item analysis, this is where you'll see it. And then your schools. So if you're in charge of multiple schools, you'll see your multiple schools. Once you click on a school, then you'll see the teachers at that school. So most of you are probably in charge of a single campus, so you'll view all of your teachers for that campus. And what you can see briefly is the attributes of the students that's in that teacher's courses. So this teacher here has 144 students. 8 are students with disability, limited English proficiency, etc. Okay, if you click on a teacher, this is their teacher dashboard. This is what your teachers see. So if your teachers have a hard time with PM, you could go in and see what they see. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and click on a different teacher. Let's try this one. So what I'm looking for is a teacher who actually uses tests in PM. So let me just go back. Everything's hashed out, so okay, so for this teacher, You can select their courses, filter by their tests. So I'm looking for a teacher that, let me go back to this, that actually use tests in PM so you can see what that looks like. And for some reason, yeah, so you see how these colors are populating? I guess we'll just go ahead and go with this. Right, so there are the courses that this teacher teaches, the test that's been given directly in PM. You could show the scores of those tests by toggling here. Okay, hide and show, and that would populate. So if this teacher were to use a lot of the tests in PM, then all of these students would see them. Okay, and then again, the attributes of these students. So if you click on students with disability, it will filter for just those students with disability. If you're looking for students with disability with limited English proficiency, then you can click both of them. So it's filtering for students who have both indicators. Okay, or you can unclick. And now I'm looking at students with disability for this teacher. Okay, or if you're interested in intervention, or gifted, and then this middle one here is early warning system, which I will get into in a little bit. Okay, so here is a good place for you to look at a student detail card as well. So let's click on a student here. And you'll see all information that PM has on that student. So this is a sample student detail card where you can see their schedules, their attendance, early warning indicator, and discipline. So let me just go back and focus on early warning indicators now. So I'm going to click on that and this student. If I am going too fast, please let me know. Okay, so here's the student's name, their ID, school, grade, and then you can see the indicators that's associated with the student, early warning, and an intervention. Okay, you can see that the student missed a few days of school. Their early warning indicator could be absences, discipline, or course grades. This student has 2 indicators for absences, so 5+ absences in semester 1 and 5+ absences in semester 2. And if there's any discipline issues, you would see them here as well. And then their course grades. When you click on test results, you'll see common tests within PM. Okay, the dates, the points, scores, the average of the class, school, and the district. If you click on the arrow, then you can see the standards distribution for the student on that particular test. If you click on view report, you'll get the bar graph of the student compared to the class, to the school, and the district. So you have multiple teachers with multiple classes. That's a good way to compare. Where does the student stand at your campus compared to the district? If you click on state under test results, you'll see the state scores that's imported into PM. It doesn't show all of them by default, so you'll have to click show all scores. That's when you'll see what's in PM. All that's in PM. And then additional scores are MAP scores, any Schoology course assessments as well. So you can filter for, say, specifically Schoology course assessments. So I tell my teachers to use Schoology assessment for formative assessments done in the classroom, and then use performance matters for district summative assessment. Okay, so you can filter by how your teacher is formatively assessing. So lots of do nows, exit tickets, anything that they give their students will be pulled into PM. And you can run reports on Schoology assessments as well. You can look at the standards distribution for this student. And you can see how it's separated by subject. If you're interested in the reds, those are the does not meet expectation. You can click on it. You can see the standard description, how the student performed compared to class, school, and district. And the tests, where you find the item that's associated with that standard. There's also an intervention card. If this student, he's marked as having an intervention, but it's not showing up. Let me go back. The intervention should show up. So I'm not sure if maybe a report was created and deleted. Let's try that again. Okay, so this is what you should see when you click intervention. If there's an intervention indicator, there are interventions associated with that student. Okay, so in this case, there are 3. You can click the downward arrows to see those individual interventions. You can click on the title and it'll download a PDF of that intervention. You can view chart to get a brief overview of that graph in the intervention. So if you do intervention, you should be familiar with this graph. If you click on the minutes, it'll take it off and all you'll see is participation. If you click on participation, they'll pull that off and all you'll see is minutes. Okay, so in this case, all of them at 100. But if the values were different, then you would see the graph moving up and down according to the data. And you can also click next to see the next intervention for the student. Okay, so you get to that through view chart. Okay, so the new part of the student detail card is the test accommodations. So if you had previous PM training, this test accommodations tab was not previously there. They made this active March of this year. So for accommodations at the test level, earlier this year, those accommodations were not active. Teachers had to go in individually to set those active for each student, and that was very difficult for our elementary schools, right? So PM heard us, and they changed it to where if it is activated at the test level, it will automatically come up for all students. Okay, so now teachers do not have to go in and activate for each of their students. So it will automatically show up if it is activated at the test level. What you can also do is define the accommodations that you want for your individual student. Okay, this will override what is set at the test level. So your testing coordinators and admins of the campus can go into individual student, click on the test accommodations tab and activate what is needed for that student. This setting will override the test setting. You can do it across all course types or individual course types. Okay.
I'm so sorry, I have a quick question. I have
Yes.
This will automatically, when we update this for students, will it automatically transfer to their Schoology or Performance Matters tests, or it just tells us that they have this accommodation?
So it will be blank, so nothing's checked here. So you actually have to go in and click what is needed for this child, and it will show up for all PM tests. So tests that are created within PM, not Schoology. Schoology has its own that the student would have to go in themselves individually to set.
Okay. And this is not going to be coming, like, when I'm thinking about Easy IEP and things like that, where we put those items and we put them in elevation, it will not read with this. This would be, if we want this to happen for the student in PM, we would have to go in student by student and do this as well.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
But if the test creator could activate the accommodations at the test creation level, and then that will be viewable for all students who takes that test.
But then if you're saying it, usually our tests come from central office, most of them, right? Like our comprehensive assessments. So if they put this as an option, would they mark it? And then the ones they mark, all the kids would get. So they can go in and mark things that would be like an accessibility feature. All students can see a graphic calculator, things like that. Then if we needed additional, like larger text or reading it aloud, we would have to go in and mark that per student.
Yes. So whatever you set here will override what they set at the test creation level.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I think I am done with your dashboard. Whenever you're in PM and you want to just clear everything, just click Performance Matters up top. It'll take you back to your dashboard. I'm not sure if I mentioned the question mark, but that is your online help. That's very helpful. It has basic steps. It has details about reports. So if you haven't used it, please make use of it if you have any questions. And then the magnifying glass, I think from your previous training, I'm sure you know how to use that magnifying glass. That's to search tests, items, interventions that's created for your campus.